Welcome back, Trailblazers. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to take a moment to talk about a tool that has completely transformed the way I plan and navigate my hikes, AllTrails Plus. As a Trailheads ambassador and the organizer of the Yakima Valley Trekkers, I'm out on the trails a lot. One of my favorite features of AllTrails Plus is the ability to edit and create my own maps. Conditions change, fallen trees, washed out sections, or even a last-minute reroute. And with AllTrails Plus, I can adjust my route on the fly and share it with others so everyone stays informed and safe. AllTrails Plus also gives you offline maps, wrong turn alerts, and 3D trail previews to help you stay on track and make the most of your adventure. And the best part, you can get 30% off an AllTrails Plus membership with my exclusive link in the episode show notes. So whether you're planning your next big trek or just looking for a new trail to explore, AllTrails Plus has you covered. Check it out and let's hit the trail. Welcome to Season 12 of the Hikes and Mics podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and each week we're hitting the trail through conversations with extraordinary hikers from across the United States and beyond. Fall is one of those magical times to be outdoors. The air is crisp, the trails are lined with golden leaves, and every step feels like an invitation to slow down and soak in the season. This year, I've had the privilege of sitting down with hikers who bring the same richness to their stories. From through hikers reflecting on lessons learned, to everyday adventurers chasing larch season, and finding peace on quiet trails, their voices remind us that the outdoors isn't just about reaching summits. It's about connection, reflection, and discovery. So lace up your boots, grab your favorite warm drink for the trail, and get ready. Season 12 is here, and the conversations ahead are as colorful as the fall landscapes we love. Just in time for Veterans Day, we sit down with Chappy, Program Director for the Veterans Engagement and Trail Stewardship Program with the Arizona Trail Association. He shares how the trail became a bridge between healing, service, and purpose after military life, and how mission therapy gives veterans a new way to connect, give back, and rediscover themselves through the outdoors. We talk about carrying the flag for fallen brothers and sisters, the power of community on the Arizona Trail, and what it means to leave the world better than we found it. It's a powerful conversation about healing, stewardship, and hope, one that reminds us how much the trail truly gives back. Learn more about the AZT Vets program and support Operation Freedom March, a statewide effort running through July 2026 to honor America's 250th birthday and empower veterans through the outdoors. Check out the episode show notes or visit aztrail.org to get involved, hike a segment, or donate. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Chappy. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mics podcast. I have a really exciting guest with me today. He is the program director for the Veterans Engagement and Trail Stewardship Program for the Arizona Trail Association. His name is Chappy, and he's going to be sharing a little bit about himself as well as the program that he is helping run there in Arizona. Chappy, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. We always like to start off by having our guests share a little bit about themselves and how they got started hiking.
Thank you, Ivan, for that awesome intro. I am honored to be here to talk about the programming I am very fortunate and honored to do for the Arizona Trail Association. And to answer your question, I've always been an outdoorsy kind of kid. In the deserts here in the Southwest, before so much development, my brother and I and all of our friends would find ourselves in our arroyos or washes, they're called here. That, I would say, is probably my introduction to hiking as a kid, which really became a staple for everything else that followed, including after my service. I found myself really gravitating back toward nature, toward trails, whether they were developed, undeveloped, backcountry, or on a semi-paved surface. It was just the experience of being outside really helped.
And Chappy, you know, one of the great things about your bio is you describe yourself as not only as a veteran, but also as a father, activist, and eco-warrior. Can you kind of share how those roles intersect and inform the work that you're doing today?
Sure. So, you know, I think any father could relate to this, that we're always trying to leave the world better than we found it, sort of a leave no trace style of parenting. And, I didn't really find myself in the activist role until after I got out, and actually just recently, maybe within the last 4 years, as I took up the mantle as director of this awesome program. I was very fortunate to meet individuals that were using their veteran voices in a very, very positive way. And I came across Common Defense, and it's one of the largest, if not the largest, grassroots veteran-led organizations around political activism. So we, dealing with issues from climate change to social justice to everything in between, really, it really solidified how important it is to use our voices, and especially on a day like today, after a huge tragedy yesterday, how important it is to have civil discourse and to not cave into our baser instincts, and to have conversations as hard as they are. And if you disagree with each other, that it doesn't end in, a violent way. And so I think all of that kind of intersects in the way that I parent, the way that I run my programming, and really truly how I interact with the rest of the world.
One thing that I loved reading is that you wrote that the U.S. flag is a symbol that you carry for your lost brothers and sisters in arms. Can you share a little bit about what does honoring them through the trail work and outdoor service mean to you personally?
The flag represents our country. It represents the insignias that we wear on our military uniforms. And it symbolizes patriotism, really. It's not something that I'm capturing or taking to capitalize on for these events. It's a way for me to stay connected, even though it's a piece of cloth. And when you're carrying something, whether it's a memento or some sort of affectation of someone that you've lost, dog tag, it grounds you in a couple things. The first one is that that individual is connected to you. You can use a symbol of a thread or threads that actually make and encompass that flag. But it also is a way to remember that as you touch it, they're no longer here. And when you touch something like that, it kind of, for me, it gives me pause. It helps, just like if I was, walking barefoot on a path or just outside, that I'm connected in some way to the world around me. And that flag absolutely represents not only our great country, but the sacrifices that were made in service to it.
You're doing amazing work there with the Arizona Trail Associations with the VETS program. And through the research, it clearly became a powerful outlet for veterans not only to heal, but also to connect and give back. How did you first get involved with the Arizona Trail Association? And what has surprised you most about the impact this work has done on the veteran community?
How I got involved with the trail is sort of a roundabout way. I worked for REI for many years as not only, a salesperson, but I worked as an outreach specialist, they called it. And back then, we were very heavily connected to our local nonprofits in Tucson. And I was very fortunate to meet my now boss, the executive director of the ATA. His name is Matt Nelson. And we became really good friends. And as a result of that, if you fast forward in time, I reached out to him right after the pandemic. I was not in a good place. I really needed to find a different avenue for work. And he didn't really have anything, but he told me that there were opportunities to volunteer for the ATA and a potential to reinvigorate the veterans program that they already had in place, but it kind of was stalled out. And he asked me, after a couple months of volunteering, to take on that role. And it's been a challenge and a major piece of growth. I really was just doing it selfishly to go out and go camping with my brothers and sisters, spending some time under the stars at night, and really doing meaningful work, and maintaining and building trails. And it's very metaphorical in that sense, because it's a tangible thing that you're able to actually transform, whether it be yourself or the environment around you. So it always left us, myself included, feeling very at peace and whole, go back home a little bit better. And that's really the goal of the program. And so to kind of tie it all together, one of the biggest surprises that I've had, and blessings, I should say, that I've encountered in this work, is the idea of giving brothers and sisters who have served purpose in the great outdoors by maintaining and building sections of the Arizona National Scenic Trail. And I really didn't understand how powerful that is, to actually give something to someone, to give a means of giving back. And what we call, outdoor therapy, really it's mission therapy versus recreational therapy. Because as we're out there together, we're having a good time, and we are outside and doing some amazing things with each other. We're also giving back to the trail, and we're giving back to the community as a a result of that. So that kind of ties beautifully into the idea of having a job, a mission, and purpose in the actions that we're fortunate enough to do out there on the trail.
One thing that caught my attention that is a very unique, I don't know if you would call it a competition or a race, but there's currently an event that you're hosting and organizing. Can you share a little bit about that event and what it entails?
Of course. Thank you for that lead in. So we are working with the state of Arizona, the AZT 250 Commission. There's a military subcommittee, and we are on the board for that. And we were asked to find a way through our programming we're already doing to engage with military veterans, their families, supporters, retirees, you name it. If you identify as a veteran or if you are impacted or influenced by the military community in any way, we want you to get out on the trail. And it's actually going through to July 4th, Independence Day of next year, to celebrate America's 250th birthday. So there is a way to register if you're able to get down here to Arizona to actually take a piece of that trail and check it off your list, maybe do more than that. If you would like to fundraise, of course, we're never going to say no, but it's really just a way to really engage in a very wholesome and holistic way with our military community in Arizona, which is quite great, where I think we're at over 250,000 military veterans that live in Arizona. So we want to capture as many as we can for this initiative. Operation Freedom March. It's going to be an amazing event. We already got a few signups, but I have a feeling it's really going to start to ramp up here when the weather starts to really, really get good. That hiking weather is upon us.
Yeah, you're almost there. You made it through that summer season, and we'll be sure to put the link at the episode show notes so people can learn more and sign up and help out in whatever capacity they can. I imagine that being on the trail with your brothers and sisters has provided some really amazing moments. And one story that really struck a chord with me was about speaking in Window Rock alongside, you might have to help me with the name,
Vine Bahe.
Alongside veteran Vine Bahe. How have moments like that, when trail work intersects with culture, history, and healing, shaped your perspective on what the program is really about?
Well, I will say that I'm following in the footsteps of great individuals that have not only created an amazing trail, but have paid homage to the cultures that the trail intersects. We recognize that every inch of the Arizona Trail is on indigenous lands. And that story that you told wasn't necessarily an AZT. I mean, it was an AZT story for the vets program, but Window Rock in that area is not, a place where the trail intersects. But I was invited very graciously to present to the Dene community regarding recreation and trails development. And I just wanted to plant seeds that there's a lot of veterans that live on reservations. Per capita, they have the highest amount in any other community. And so I just wanted to make sure that they are, hopefully, I know they honor their veterans very highly in those cultures, but I was very fortunate to have a young Marine named Vine, attend a few of my events. And I asked him to come. I said, please share your experiences, because I can sit here all day and tell you how amazing these programs are, but hearing it from someone from the actual community meant so much more. And I could tell, because I think you may have read this too, that his mother was in the audience, and she was so emotional and grateful that her son had something to distract him, if you will, or something that was benefiting him and removing him from any kind of bad behavior and, bad thoughts, which is very prevalent in our community, in the military community, I should say. So it was quite an experience to not just be in a very sacred space. The fact that the Code Talkers Memorial is there as well, right against this amazing backdrop of an arch right behind it, and with snow on the deck. I mean, it was incredibly tranquil, and having those stories really grounded myself in that spot in that time.
Yeah, you got me a little choked up just hearing your experience on it, because reading it was one thing, but just the visualization that you were able to provide is something special. Switching gears, Chappy, you've also been outspoken about defending democracy and standing in solidarity with those on the front lines of justice. How do you balance that public advocacy with the deeply personal work that you're doing on the trail?
It's a balancing act for sure. You said it very well. I have to wear many hats in this job. And I know that part of that is just embracing my background and, the privilege that I have. And I know using, as I said earlier, that veteran mystique in order to provide really respectful and respectable commentary on the issues of our time. I really didn't know how powerful stepping into that would be. And with that being said, there's been a lot of legislation recently that has been around around obviously climate change, but actual legislation that is benefiting our military and veteran communities and getting them more engaged with the outdoors. In fact, the last administration before Trump took over again, it was the Explore Act that was just passed. And we're still hoping and praying that some of that legislation will actually come to fruition, but it is technically passed, which means there is hopefully means for the military community to have greater access, more financial support, and just better accessibility throughout their time transitioning out of the service and then some. But yeah, the VA is hit or miss depending on where you are in the country. And I think adding a, prescription of nature and maybe some trail work to that whole health model that they have would do most of the veterans that I know a world of good.
You mentioned in one of your posts that I think not just veterans, but all hikers can agree with. You wrote, "The trail may not always give you what you want, but it always gives you what you need." From your own personal experiences, what's something the trail has given to you that you didn't expect?
Humility. I think a lot of us recreate differently, and, trails are pretty magical in their own right. They lead you to some really incredible places. And I think every time I go out, either by myself or with my veteran crews on the trail or any trail in general, I recognize how small I am and how fragile we all are and how incredibly important it is to stay connected to these amazing landscapes. And so I think, when you're younger, I'll keep it with myself. When we're younger, I took things for granted, and nature was absolutely one of them. And these amazing places that are still accessible to me. And as I age and my body starts to show signs of wear, I am always humbled by how nature can still take my breath away and what it does for me. It's mental health, it's physical health. It adds perspective, it adds purpose, and I feel much more connected to myself, to others, and my family when I return every time.
I got to agree with you. I think for me, it gives me some clarity sometimes when there's a bunch of mental fogness or just a lot of stuff going on. Just being outside, even if it's just for like 15 to 30 minutes, just gives you that peace and quiet to kind of work through some things and provide some clarity with situations that might not seem clear at the moment. For you, Chappy, a big portion of your world is also your family, and your love letter to your family is incredibly moving, especially the way that you speak directly to your children and your partner, not just on resilience, but also on purpose and love. What lessons do you hope your kids carry with them from the work that you've dedicated your life to?
I mean, you can get me choked up over here, dude. I didn't think you were going to bring that up, but I'm glad you did, because I wrote it for everyone because it seemed like hitting the right spot for a few of my friends that follow me on Facebook and Instagram as well. There's so much division happening right now, Ivan, so much pain. And I have to be honest that I also tend to gravitate toward hopelessness when it just becomes so overwhelming. And again, as a father, as a protector of my children, I want them to have hope. I want them to stay hopeful, to stay positive that they can actually be a part of this world. And not just that, but to have their own purpose and meaning. And if, like I said in the letter, just if I can give them anything, it's just to keep moving, to keep pushing forward, to find their trail, to find their path, no matter how bad it gets, no matter how rocky, no matter how slippery, even if you fall down, right? Just get up and keep going.
Love that. Yeah. If folks get a chance, I definitely recommend you check out that post that Chappy did, not just to his family, but like you said, to everybody, because I think everybody can connect with it. Chappy, for not just veterans, but civilians who might be listening, who might feel lost or disconnected right now, what would you say is a good first step towards finding community and hopefully healing in the outdoors?
You said it perfectly. That's it. Obviously, you have to want it. Veterans are stubborn. Civilians are stubborn. We are stubborn as human beings. We don't like asking for help. We have a hard time, especially men, asking for what we need to getting, vulnerable and, exposing our sensitivity. And it's important. It shows strength, wanting to rely on others. I mean, that's what the military ethos is. You fight alongside and with and for your brothers and sisters. And that should be no different in the civilian or post-military transition world. So I would say there are programs, there are people. More so, there are entities out there that are as authentic as apple pie and cheeseburgers, man, we're here and you just need to come and find it. The internet is an amazing resource, obviously, but I am a big fan of making personal one-on-one connection like this, talking on the phone, showing up in person. And I think that's super important to regaining equilibrium after serving in the military and just inserting yourself into something. Whether you're like, I don't know, that guy seems weird. He wants to go and take me camping in the middle of nowhere. Or if it's like a painting class and, you're afraid of like messing up, or it's something that you've always been intrigued with, maybe you're into, you always watch surfing on Wild Water Sports growing up and you want to go try your hand at surfing. I mean, there's organizations out there that pretty much offer every kind of modality you can think of in the outdoors. And I would just say to either sector, whether veteran or civilian, find your thing. And of course, I'm gravitating toward the outdoors because I feel like that's the perfect environment to connect with yourself and the world around you. So just go and find that one thing. And if that's not your thing, go find another thing. Don't give up.
One thing that I had a big misconception before I moved to Arizona before the pandemic was I always thought it was just desert. And it wasn't until I went up to Flagstaff and Payson where I saw a completely different section and area of Arizona. And I think the Arizona Trail takes you through some beautiful and underrated areas in Arizona. For you, what are some of your favorite places to hit the outdoors in Arizona? And then what are some of your more memorable sections of the AZT?
So just to back up for the listeners that don't know about the Arizona National Scenic Trail, it's 800 miles plus, we say, give or take, because it's always changing. Unfortunately, not to get too doom and gloom, but we had a really awful fire season this year, and it took a huge chunk of the trail north of the Grand Canyon. So we no longer have one continuous trail, but what it's going to provide are opportunities to repair it, which is the silver lining to the kind of work that we do. But to answer your question, I grew up in Tucson, and we have the Santa Catalinas, we have the Rincons, and the Santa Rita mountain ranges literally within, all of them within an hour's drive. You can be in those relatively high in those ranges. And my favorite section of the AZT is up on Mount Lemmon, called Wilderness of Rocks, very well named. And I found myself there as often as I could be. It's sort of remote. You can go in just a few miles and feel very isolated, and there's water. And of course, everyone that lives in the desert, even up in Flagstaff and Payson, water is magic. And being around water at any given moment just adds to the whole experience. But I would say that, some of my favorite trips with the vets crews have been, God, it's so varied, but I'll just say the last one before we took our summer break, I took a very small crew of 5. We were in Flagstaff, and we were actually putting in rollover gates for the mountain biking community in and around Flag. And it was sort of like a weird but glampy kind of experience because we actually got to camp in Walnut Canyon National Monument. We got to drive basically to each work site every day. I have friends that live in Flag. I'm very fortunate in that regard, and they hosted us one night. We had an amazing dinner, and they just overfed us. But all I kept hearing was just this gratitude for what we were doing, gratitude from the community that was, on their bike or hiking. And it's really amazing when you're doing that kind of work in the field and you get instant gratification from the community every time one passes by and they just say thank you. That's pretty special. So, Arizona, as you said earlier, Ivan, it's as varied as pebbles almost in a beach. There are amazing biomes that reside in our state, and you can get a taste of everything. And so I think I'd always have to break it down by biome of which parts of the trail I love the most. But I will never say no to going up to the big Ponderosa pines and Flag, but you can get those same Ponderosas up on Mount Lemmon and the Rincon. So it just kind of depends on what your mood is and where you're located and how far you're willing to drive. But we have some incredible landscapes in the great state of Arizona.
I'm glad you mentioned Mount Lemmon because that was one of my favorite places to visit because I felt like every mile that we climbed, it was a completely different landscape. It just kept changing. And then finally, when we reached the ski resort, it took me back to being in the Pacific Northwest with the pines, just the views, the temperatures, even though it was the middle of summer, still felt cool. Mount Lemmon, if folks get a chance, it's worth the drive, and there's so many great viewpoints, so many trails. It's a really unique place there in Tucson that has its own ecosystem. I feel like every single mile, like I said, it changed, at least for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I will love to give a shout out to Jake with the Catalina Ranger District. He is the Trails and Recreation Manager, and he is an amazing partner for the Arizona Trail Association. But he's doing fantastic work up on Mount Lemmon, providing, more accessibility options, enhancing campgrounds, parking areas, which, I mean, these areas are super popular now. And it sounds like a very, mundane job. But like you just said, if this podcast leads anyone up there, they're going to see that space is limited. And so they're always trying to figure out ways to provide more accessibility. And a lot of people are driving, but it's the trails too, the systems themselves. And he employs all the tools, including the VETS program and other volunteer organizations to help maintain some of those amazing trails that are up there.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. And Chappy, you're gearing up to really get back into the swing of things now that the summer's on its way out. If folks are interested in getting involved with the VETS program or just the Arizona Trail Association program, what are some of the best ways they can get involved?
So we have a really awesome volunteer program in general for both civilians and, we have programs that are youth oriented. They have one that's for young women called Gear Girls that's up in Flagstaff. Our friend Mackenzie runs that, and she's just taking girls out in the good months, or I should say the warmer months. They're biking and learning how to maintain their bikes, but they're also taking them skiing and snowboarding in the wintertime. So, I mean, there's so many options throughout the year for volunteer engagement with the ATA. But, honestly, just give me a call. I'm happy to provide my phone number to your listeners. I prefer a phone call or a text, to be honest with you, versus an email, because I'm more often than not in front of a screen, doing the back end work for this job. And I know it's necessary, but I'm always happy to take a phone call if you'd like to learn more about what we do.
Chappy, one regular segment that we like to do here on the podcast is we like to do a deep dive into our guest's Instagram and highlight a specific post or reel. And the one that caught our eye was a post back from 2019 on Guadalupe Peak, the top of Texas. Can you take us back to that climb, and what did that experience mean to you?
Yeah, that was like the very first post I think I did, or one of the first ones I did on I'm bad on the gram, man. I don't post enough. Personally, anyway, I do more for the AZ Trail Vets. So the story is my family and our kids are now 21 and 12. And I believe at the time they were 4 and 15. And we did a year-long road trip across the country, and we were on our way back toward the later end of the months, and we found ourselves wanting to go and see Carlsbad Caverns, and of course Guadalupe Peak is right there. So we went to that campground. It's so tiny. If anyone's ever camped there, it's so rocky, it's so rough. Trying to set up a family tent in that campground was a nightmare. But we were on the road for a couple days, and I told my partner Celeste, I was like, hey, I need to go for a hike. I think I'm just going to do the peak. So I just got up. I got a wild hair, and I got up one morning and did the hike, and it was gorgeous day. The weather was perfect. There were hardly any people on the trail yet. Met a couple people, and you know how it is. The trails community is always welcoming, and it was always like, hey, how's it going? And I had the whole top to myself for at least an hour before other people started showing up. And weirdly enough, like some veterans showed up with like their military packs they were training, not sure what for, but yeah, I just remember looking out to that range beyond the mountains, the valley essentially going into Mexico. And I was just like, again, having one of those moments of how small, how fragile, and how grand the whole human experience is on this amazing planet. And I'll never forget it, man. I spoil it with my photo, but that monument that's up there, that obelisk, whoever toted that thing up there, my hat is off to you. I bet that was not easy. So that was a great hike.
These last 3 questions, Chappy, are questions we like to ask all our guests. I feel like for day hikers and some backpackers, they tend to have a regular summit routine, or maybe it's the end of the hike routine. For a lot of us, it's packing a favorite snack or drink. For others, it's a moment of zen. And then for a lot of us, looking forward to that meal afterwards. Is there a regular custom or routine that you like to do when you reach your destination, or maybe when you make it back out?
Yeah, trying to think, I don't think I have really a routine. I would say I steal a lot from other people, their routines, because I mean, that's the best way to learn how to do this. Because a lot of people are like myself, you're a novice at some point and you got to get proficient at it. And so you kind of pick up on little things, taking off your shoes and socks, letting them air out, depending on where you're at. If it's, the desert is very kind in that regard. But yeah, if you're like where you're at in the Pacific Northwest, you got to be really strategic in how you dry things out, putting them under your coat and your armpits and stuff. So I think it's mostly about getting to that campground and getting things set up and then really, getting out of the uniform, if you will, and getting into something dry and cozy. I'm a big fan of Licky Chewies and the snacks and just, looking forward to a really good meal. And I have to admit, I still go bougie with the backpackers meals that are out now. And I mean, I got some favorites for sure, but some of them just hit so much harder when you're exhausted after a long day. But I will say, though, at the end of the trip, when I'm finally back in my vehicle, I do take a moment or two and just say a little prayer, if you will. I don't pray, but it's more of just a moment to just appreciate that I made it, that the experience was incredible, hopefully, or, even if it's not, I'm still, grateful that I had the chance to experience something new and different. And I'm not going to lie, I will find the first burger joint in proximity to that trailhead because I am a big fan of a big old juicy burger and some fries after a long expedition.
Now, Chappy, this next question's about your pack list. Is there a luxury item that you tend to pack that falls outside of the essentials? And not necessarily luxury as like cost-wise, but just something that might not necessarily be an essential pack list item, but brings you comfort and joy to bring it alongside you.
It's a great question. I'm almost embarrassed to answer these questions because I'm giving away some of the mystique here. But, like I said, I mentioned I'm getting older and I want to bring comforts with me for sure, especially on backpacking trips. But things are getting so light that it's almost, I don't feel guilty, I should say. So everyone has their own definition of luxury, I think. But the main essential is going to be a really good camp chair. I don't even know if that's considered luxury or essential, but there is no log or rock that is somehow magically the shape of your rear end when you hit your final destination in camp. So having a nice chair to sit down in the wintertime, I bring the warm and insulated slippers with me. In addition to that, I would say, who likes blowing up an air mattress? I'm just going to ask that question. Who actually enjoys that piece after, miles on the trail? It sucks. It sucks. It sucks. It sucks. So I don't know, like 3 or 4 years ago, one of my veterans introduced me to this little gadget, and it's like the size of a roll of quarters, and it inflates your mattress. It's like it weighs nothing. It's an incredibly bougie piece of kit, but I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, I just throw that thing on, and if I wanted to, I could probably be in the sack in less than 10 minutes.
Oh, I like those. No, I converted to Team Camp Chair this year, and I won't go back. And yeah, I have a FlexTail pump too, but one of my group members, she bought something that's even lighter weight. It does need a battery pack, but it's maybe the size of 2 quarters that you just plug in
the
USB-C to your power bank, and it inflates it. So even lighter weight than...
What? Send me that link. Send it to me.
Will do. Yeah.
That adage, I'm sure you've said it on your podcast, that ounces equal pounds and pounds equal pain.
Right?
It doesn't get any worse or better as you age. So,
no.
Yeah, give me all the links.
Oh, I gotcha. Now, this next one, Chappy, is a 2-parter. So we're recording this on September 11th, and, there's still plenty of hiking, especially there in Arizona. You're really starting to gear up for the second real big hiking season there in the Southwest. Is there any hiking or travel goals that you personally have for the remainder of the year? And then is there any hiking or program goals that you have for the VETS program for the rest of 2025?
So I'm blessed to be able to say that my love for the outdoors intersects with my work. And so I don't have a lot of goals personally because I get out so much with my guys and gals in the program. I would love to revisit some places, but I'll say that I'm pretty focused and committed to the success of this program. And really, I think more so than, and I know this is a hiking podcast, but I more cherish the times that I have at home with my family. And so I really look forward to like the summer, I get like a teacher schedule, like where I can slow down, refresh and focus on programming and all the other things that I probably slacked on during the season. So, it's really more about making sure that I'm available to my family when I'm at home and fully present. And as a dad, it's just so apparent that I know it's an adage that every parent says, but it's true. They just grow up too damn fast and you miss it. I did the totals last year and I was in the field for over 2 months, not straight, but over the course of the year. That's a long time. It's not quite a military deployment schedule, but it's a lot. And it takes its toll. And so to your second part, I'm just really, really happy to be going outside again. We have an event over National Public Lands Day. It's just going to be a day for me to really kick off the Operation Freedom March campaign with a good bang. And then, we're off and running. We're going to be up in Happy Jack for a pretty amazing event at the beginning of October. I have some speaking engagements that month. Of course, Veterans Day is a huge opportunity to bring out as many individuals as I can possibly get. And we always partner with another great organization called Team Rubicon. They're a veteran-led disaster relief nonprofit. If you guys aren't aware of them, please check them out. They're amazing. But they come out, get a little R&I, but I put them to work too. So there's a lot of amazing opportunities coming up. But I think my biggest goal is to get as many individuals, but our grand prize goal is to get at least 250 people out on the trail in honor of for America's 250th birthday. If we can get some of your listeners to get out there on the trail and tackle a piece of it, I think we can hit that mark. And I guess it's almost like a call to action and a challenge to your listeners to get out there, get on the trail, tell me how it is. And hopefully get us some good photos. But didn't mention this, but a little incentive here. We actually got a little bit of money, some funding for some swag for those that are participating in the event. So if that speaks to you or your listeners, there are some prizes, if you will, for those that come out and take on a piece of the Arizona Trail.
And like I said, we'll have the links down in the episode show notes so people can learn more and sign up and help you reach that goal. Chappy, that was it for the regular questions. This last section of the podcast is the this or that questions. You're more than welcome to say both or neither, but the first one is, and I think I'll know the answer to this one just because of where you're located, but if you had to choose between these two hiking seasons, would you choose the summer hiking season or the fall?
Fall. I turn nocturnal in the summertime. I'm a vampire. I turn into like a bear in the summertime. I put on weight whether I want to or not, just because I can't get out as much. And I don't want to because I'm not an early riser. I do when I'm out on the trail because that circadian rhythm returns. But summertime, it's hard to get up at 4 a.m. to go do a trip or a hike or whatever. So absolutely 100% unequivocally the fall.
And then this next one's a tough one, but waterfalls or summits?
Ooh, both. I mean, if I had to lean toward one, it would absolutely be a summit. But water out here, like I said, it's magic for us desert rats. It's hard to pass up a waterfall. So like I think of when we were traveling, we hit Yosemite and like Vernal Falls, Nevada Falls on your way up to Half Dome. I stopped for the hike took so long because every time we hit a water feature, I would stop and just be in awe, especially the size of those waterfalls. So I would say if you could qualify it, the larger the waterfall, the more inclined I'm probably going to stick around and maybe miss that summit on that day.
And this next one's a tough one, but for your summit days, if you had a choice between going straight up or using switchbacks, which one did you go with?
Switchbacks. My legs are old, dealing with, arthritis now and all kinds of things. Straight up is not pleasant. I don't even think when I was younger, I probably have the same answer. So I think switchbacks, just I guess from a trail design standpoint, I know it pisses people off, but they are more sustainable because the more steep a trail is, especially out here in the desert, the more inclined for erosion and for it to get absolutely destroyed during our wet season. And, if we ever have them again, but switchbacks are important to the sustainability of any trail system.
This next one is our most controversial one, but trek poles or freehand?
I don't hate on the trekking poles. I use them occasionally, but I would say because I'm hiking with trail tools, I almost have the luxury of having those be my balance. But I probably should use them more, to be honest with you. I have, working for REI, I have too much gear and I have some really sick, lightweight poles and I probably should take them more often. But I would say I don't hate on either one, but I am definitely trekking pole free at this point.
And this next one's about your footwear. Do you wear traditional hiking boots or trail runners?
Hiking boots, ankle support. I'm carrying, at any given time, I'm not an ultralighter. And even when I'm recreating without tools or with that kind of mindset, I'm a big believer in not scrimping on your pack as far as the weight or your boots. And because those are the two things that are really going to make or break your hike and your backpacking trip. And I'm sure all of you that are out there that know what a blown hiking sole can do to your morale, as well as a buckle or, a piece of fabric that gets snagged on a tree or a rock. And all of a sudden you got to play doctor out there and stitch up or figure out some creative method to rig up your pack again. I will absolutely say that boots all day long.
And this next one's another tough one, but it's about trail systems. If you had a choice, would you choose a loop trail or an out and back trail?
Dude, trying to think. Because a lot of the hikes that I do, like Wilderness of Rocks is an out and back. It's my favorite one. And I would say that they both offer really great experiences, but I would just almost want to know more about what that loop looks like. Is the whole loop as scenic as the first half? You know what I mean? If not, and you could probably attest to this too, Ivan, like when you do an out and back, you're not experiencing traveling from the other direction. So it's almost like you're getting a brand new experience on your way out. So I would say, not to be a Libra here, but I don't know. I think it depends on the trail. And how about this? If there's a destination throughout the loop that would force you to do more than half of that loop, I would absolutely take that loop over an out and back, but it better be freaking scenic or else I'm probably going to get upset. Or if it's overcrowded, there's nothing worse. Chappy turns crappy super quick in those situations, brothers. Different strokes, different folks.
Now, this next one is about trail conditions, and Arizona is known to have both of these, especially during the monsoon season. But if you had to choose between these two types of trail conditions, would you go muddy or rocky?
The mud out here is gnarly. You're contending not just with, the fact that it's slippery, it's, you're unsure of your footing, but you tend to sink down and it adds that extra weight to those already heavy boots. I would much rather just be more cautious and careful because I've done, rocks for days in Arizona. It's just, you can't escape, especially Southern Arizona is just known for just being so damn rocky. And I would rather just take my time and get there in one piece, hopefully without twisting an ankle versus like getting gnarly mud caked on my boot and having 10-pound cement shoes by the time I get to a place that I can knock it all back off again.
And then this next one's probably going to be one of the hardest ones for you because Arizona is known for having both of these in stunning fashion. But if you had a choice, would you do a sunrise hike or a sunset hike?
Sunset. Again, I'm not an early riser. And as anyone who has ever been to the Southwest can attest to, more often than not, especially around this time of year when there's clouds, you're going to get epic sunsets. Sunrises are incredible in their own right, but I think, for those of us that maybe gravitate toward the night owl mentality, it's just you're already kind of going in that direction anyway. So hopefully your hike ends on an amazing piece of trail where you can overlook the sunset and maybe some mountains and have, of course, those clouds that look. Just yesterday we were driving somewhere and this time of year you get this amazing contrast of clouds where it's like super dark and followed by behind it a very white patch that's just lit up by the sun. It looks like a painting, and I can see where all these artists and photographers are inspired by Arizona sunsets. So yeah, long-winded way of saying, give me a sunset any day of the week.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. I think here in the Pacific Northwest, every once in a while we'll get a really stunning sunset, but I felt like living in Arizona, it was like almost guaranteed that every single sunset was going to be spectacular in one form or another. It was just so continuous. And like you said, especially when it's teetering between that summer fall season, they just got a little bit more special with each day. Now, Chappy, Arizona also has these next two in stunning fashion, but if you had to choose, would you go with spring wildflowers or fall colors?
We don't really get fall colors unless you go up to the mountains. We had 2 years ago now, I took another small group with what we call the Fox Squad, which is our contingent of veterans that are actually paid contractors with the ATA. And it's an all veteran crew. And we do more remote backcountry projects together. And we were up on Lemmon. We were doing a big loop from Summerhaven or at that Marshall Gulch trailhead. And then we went all the way down to Sabino Canyon. It's I think it was just over 17 miles total for that trip while doing maintenance and camping along the way. And it was an incredible experience. And we started out up on the top of Lemmon with all of those oaks that were shifting to this amazing hue of reds and yellows. And it was just stunning. Colors you don't see in nature out here too much. But I will say, when we have the mega blooms out here, they are incredible to witness as well. I think 2 years ago, we had an amazing spring bloom near Picacho Peak. If you've ever traveled on I-10, kind of in between here and Casablanca, or Casa Grande, I should say, there's just an incredible bloom. Saguaro National Park East had another super bloom as well. And, it's like you said earlier, it looks so dead most of the year until we get rain, or we get enough rain for it to go dormant. And then when spring rolls around, you get these incredible color contrasts from the rock and the saguaros. When the saguaros bloom, I mean, holy crap. It's just, even the Ocotillo, they look like the devil made, a mistake when he tried to make a bush or a tree, and they're just so pokey and spiny. And then they they actually have leaves that, come off of them when, during the right time of year. And so I think, again, long-winded, you're asking great questions, Ivan. These are awesome questions. But I think the bloom far outweighs the fall colors, because it's rare unless you live in the mountains to actually see that transition.
Now, Chappy, I feel like over the last couple of years, electrolytes has been a big thing, especially in the backpacking world. There's so many different types of electrolytes now. For you personally, if you had to choose, are you doing tablets or powder?
Neither. I did both for the longest time. And it's like people... See, I think, again, this is not just because I'm an old salty trail dog now. Like I started with all of these foods, these power foods, these Cliff Bars, the electrolytes. I don't want to take anything away from it, but it's like, for me, it's the taste and the texture. And I don't know if any of your listeners have this experience, but especially when you're overexerting yourself, it's like the ultra runners that have to eat goo, because that's the only thing they can stuff so many of inside of their packs. And they work really well but it's like stomaching them. And sometimes it can certainly make your tummy churn. So I'm always looking for more natural and more palatable alternatives. And I found an amazing company called Protect, and started, always trying to support my veteran businesses out there. And they do it's a liquid. So it's almost immediate as far as its absorption into the bloodstream. But when you combine it with water, which you're supposed to do like anything else, the flavors are really good. They're pretty diverse, but also I think they taste really well compared to I love Scratch Lab too, but as you probably can attest to, it takes a long time for some of that stuff to dissolve. And so when you need it fast, I feel like the liquids are amazing to take out with you. And they come in these little tiny packs, so it doesn't take up much weight. It's all natural ingredients. It's just the basics. You get potassium, sodium, and magnesium, I think, are the 3 ingredients in this thing. Try it out if you haven't.
Now, Chappy, these last couple ones are, backpacker specific. If you had to choose between these two, would you choose bug bites or sunburn?
Sunburn. I am unfortunate that mosquitoes, they love me. They love me and my son. We must have that blood type. And it wouldn't be so bad if we didn't react so poorly to it. Like I welt up. It's that constant cycle of, it's a bug bite and then it itches and then it goes away and then it comes back and itches again. It's just like this awful cycle for like a week. And I would much rather throw some aloe vera on my face or my shoulders or whatever. And I think, it's another good question as far as like where the sunburn is located. And most of the time when you're backpacking, it's really your face. And, I'm probably going to pay for this in my later years, but I really, I'm a big believer in trying to, go natural with the sunscreens, zinc, not much else, and a good straw hat for, rocking on the trail to cover your neck and face. But bug bites suck.
They do. And this next one is unique because, in southern Arizona, you might not really hit one of these unless you're up on Mount Lemmon or further up north in the state. But if you had to choose between these two types of trail hazards, would you do a stream crossing or a snowfield traverse?
Is the snowfield on an incline?
Yeah.
Oh, then all day I do a stream crossing. I did a Knowles course back in 2018, and I was fortunate to do it in Wyoming. I was definitely out of my element. And we were doing a lot of snow-related, avalanche trainings on skis, which I failed at miserably. But it was an incredible experience. But it gave me a big appreciation for how treacherous snow really is. And especially I've done a couple of solo hikes in the mountains and, around Tucson. And, when the trail is covered, especially when those areas of tread just disappear, and there's a steep incline or decline rather, off the critical edge there. It's sketchy, and you really got to take your time. Trekking poles are incredible, to have in those circumstances. But I feel like, a river crossing or a stream crossing, you said stream, so I'm going to say a stream sounds like you just need to take your shoesies off and go get your feet wet for a little bit and maybe stop, which is probably a good thing, because who doesn't love taking their shoes off, putting them in some cold water, especially after some miles on the trail. So I would definitely say snow scares me in some ways, but I'll do it. It's just, if I had the preference, I'd definitely, and again, it goes back to the love of water. Let me just go dance and play in the stream for a little bit while you guys go on, and I'll catch up.
And the last one, I think you've answered it kind of, but you might surprise me. But if you had to choose, would you go ultralight or would you bring luxury items?
Luxury. My body it will probably be the final say in that, because as we all know, as I said earlier, the adage of all the stuff in your pack adding up to pain. I think I don't ever really, unless I'm forced to. I know some people will absolutely disagree with me, especially the thru hiking community. That is near and dear to my heart out here, man. It's one of the lifeblood elements to the reason why the trail is in such good shape, and it drives us to want to maintain it and keep it in good shape. It's just, I'm not doing those kind of miles yet. Maybe one day, and I will embrace it, but I do, like you, Ivan, I want a chair at the end of the day. Maybe I want an extra food in my pack. Maybe an extra blanket or, pair of long johns or something. I don't want to be uncomfortable. Like if I'm already uncomfortable as it is, like I'm working so hard with these guys. Camping it's awesome, right? But it's not your bed, it's not meant to be comfortable. That's the whole idea, is that's where the growth is, when you're uncomfortable, right? So, but I try and limit that uncomfortability as much as humanly possible.
Well, Chappy, that was it for the this or that questions. If folks want to learn and find you on social media, as well as learn more about the VETS program, where are some of the places they can find both you and information on the VETS program on social media and online?
So we have a website. The easiest way to remember it is aztrail.org, and we are a subcategory within the website under veteran engagement. And the VETS program has, our flyers are in there, my number, my email. I'll just say it right now so your audience can hear it, but it's chappy@aztrail.org, or seriously, pick up the phone, give me a call. I'll probably pick up. If not, I'll get back to you, but it's 970-779-5740. Our handle on all the social platforms is AZ Trail Vets. I am more active on Instagram than anything else. I'm trying my best to continue to explore the black hole that is the meta universe, but I try to, at least capture some good moments photographically anyway through Instagram. I feel like it's a better medium. But yeah, website, email, call me, Instagram.
Awesome. And we'll be sure to put those links in the episode show notes. Chappy, it has been an incredibly fun time speaking with you. I appreciate your years of service, as well as what you're doing down there in Arizona for veterans and getting them on the trails. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, especially on this day like 9/11, to speak with me about the important work that you're doing with the VETS program and the Arizona Trail Association.
Ivan, I can't thank you enough. Thank you for that. This has been an amazing conversation, a great distraction. Great questions. And it's been my pleasure to speak with you and to share the work we're doing. And as you said, today is a day that will never get easier, I think, for most of our community. It's a day, especially for our military community, that has shaped a lot of what our services look like over the years, especially the last 20. And being able to share things like this and talk with people like you that love the outdoors, that are willing to share their platforms like you have so generously to give us a voice and let your audience know that there are so many of us out there that love the trails, love nature, and are just wanting to protect and enhance our trail community's experience. So thank you for what you do for our community.
And that brings us to the end of this episode alongside Chappy. We extend a heartfelt thanks to them for joining us on the podcast. Be sure to follow them on Instagram at the Salty Steward with underscores between each word. And to learn more about the AZT VETS program and support Operation Freedom March, check out the episode show notes. This episode of Hikes and Mics was produced by Jordan Smith. Be sure to follow her adventures on Instagram at jordan.journeys. New episodes will drop every Monday throughout the fall hiking season, with occasional Friday bonus episodes sprinkled in. To make sure you never miss a moment of these inspiring trail stories, hit the follow or subscribe button. Your support truly keeps this community growing. Don't forget to connect with us on Instagram at Hikes and Mics. That's where you'll find behind-the-scenes episode visuals, my own hiking adventures, and plenty more to keep the fall inspiration flowing. As we wrap up today's journey, remember, the trails may be covered in leaves, but the spirit of adventure is wide open. So tread those happy trails, breathe in that crisp autumn air, and keep exploring. Until next time, my fellow hikers, happy hiking. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, ursaminoroutfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, ursaminoroutfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order.